Who dat to everybody on Thursday evening. Welcome into the show. And I hope y'all are having a good one. Your New Orleans Saints started training camp. And that's exciting. It should be exciting. Not all the news I have to share with you today is exciting news, but I would say for the most part, good news. I mean, we've got positive Payton Turner reports, which I don't care if that's a plant or not. Happy about it. We've got kind of Trevor Penning news, kind of, sort of. We've got Cameron Jordan, definitely talking real positive. He actually gave a little bit of more insight in terms of what he hopes and is looking for his career to look like here in the near future, which, if you're a Saints fan, I'd be paying attention to that. And then just some overall, hey, training camp has started. So that's exciting. And yeah, so let me cover some of the big ones. But after we, of course, first give a shout out to those who are here early at the live stream. Appreciate y'all being here. Bim, Lester, TJ, Tyler Guillory, James Griffon, Therese, Jimbo, Bruno, K-Man, Nikki the Fish says there's 27 moons around Uranus. Who dat? That's the most random-ish I've ever seen in my life. Lance, good to see you. Lance says F the Falcons. Real quick call out. My daughter is 3, obsessed with this YouTube show called like Gabby's Playhouse or something. I'm not sure how many people out there got kids or whatever, but like Gabby's Dollhouse, Gabby's Playhouse. And they over here repping Atlanta and talking about the Falcons. And I'll be honest, I kind of wanted to like ban her from watching the show ever again. Yeah, I wanted to ban my 3-year-old from watching a YouTube show. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I haven't decided yet. But who that to you, funny guy? Been good to see you in here. And I'm glad Mr. Jerry should have been. I mean, I'm really thinking about like, maybe, does that make me a bad parent? It makes me a great Who Dat Nation. But does it make me a bad parent? I honestly don't know. I really, truly don't know if it makes me a good parent or a bad parent. But it is what it is. So let's get it in. Let's start. You're playing the Falcons in the division round in Madden Lightning. Nice. I haven't picked up Madden in minutes. In several minutes. It's been years since I've like really been excited about Madden. Yeah, I really can't. I'm like trying to sit here and think about it, but I honestly can't. But let's get it in. Trevor Penning, he is dealing with a foot injury, but Dennis Allen says it is minor. He's only expected to miss a day or two. It's considered day-to-day. I don't really know how much I trust the whole it's not major thing. I'll be honest with you. I'll just keep it a buck. As I always try to do this. Keep it a buck. It's really hard for me to not be kind of like negative if on the first day you having issues. And look, again, not trying to be negative Nancy. I'm really not, y'all. To remind y'all, Trevor Penning is a large man. Like, this is a 6'7", like 330-pound human. He's a very big man. As we've discussed in years past, when you are that size, lower body injuries and foot injuries don't exactly usually just go away. So the fact that he's even in a day-to-day injury situation with that foot is concerning to me. Even if Dennis Allen says it is not. But that's some news. So he missed today. So if you are going through your Twitter feeds, or I guess your X feeds, because that's a whole Elon Musk thing. If you're going through your feeds, man, I'm just being honest. I'm chalking that up as a negative. That's a big negative for me. Now, positive would be Payton Turner sighting. And not only a Payton Turner sighting, but extremely positive Payton Turner sighting. And there were a couple people who were missing, like Kalen Saunders didn't finish practice day, but that was like illness related. And I think that's kind of fine. You didn't have TP up there, but most people were at camp. So that's a good positive. But you had Payton Turner, who apparently was balling out today. So shout out to Payton Turner. Now, one domination of training camp practice does not an elite defensive end make. That said, we've been needing somebody. In fact, we just talked about it in the past podcast episode. We need somebody to step up, take the reins, and be the guy opposite Cameron Jordan. Payton Turner starting off with a strong camp. None of it means anything in the great scheme of things. Like, this does not guarantee what we're going to hope for in 2 months, right? However, that said, it actually still a really good sign. And like when you're talking about keeping an eye on a guy, it's a better sign that he's coming out and looking good early than it is if he was just coming out being ass again and being healthy scratches. So I'm taking it as a positive. Does it make me believe in him? No, not yet. But I certainly would rather hear about my first round pick from last year coming in and doing great things than to not hear about him at all. So I'm taking it with the largest grain of salt that I can kind of, pass on and make known, and being very clear that I don't think that this alone is an indicator of great success moving forward. But damn it, I'd much rather have this than the opposite happen. I'd much rather have this than the Trevor Penning story, which is, shocker, 6'7", 330-pound man has ankle problems and foot problems. Shit. Excuse the language. I should have beeped it out. Damn. Again, we'll just see how it ends up looking. Now, K-Man says they said Turner looked great in camp last year, and I don't really recall that personally. I guess we could hit the Wayback Machine, hop in and go listen to the old podcast, but I don't remember him coming out being amazing. But again, this is one day. It's more of a positive story to make you hopeful for what this week can be. For me, when I say these things, I'm definitely not trying to get you to be excited throughout the entire week. As in, like, this month, we've got it. This is the guy. Now, it was really hot today. I don't know how many people are down who are listening to the show or down in NOLA, but you've had, I think it was like 4 different players today who left due to either heat or being sick. I mentioned Kalen Saunders, but you had Keith Kirkwood, didn't finish practice. You had Shaq Davis, didn't finish practice. And honestly, I don't even want to like speculate that this is like a conditioning thing. I just think that training camp in Metairie is difficult. It's hot. It's hard. It's crazy. But hey, Payton Turner finished practice. That matters. Gerald, good to see you. What up, kinfolk? Dr. Billy Elsie, good to see you. When they finish practice, it's good, right? This is good. Positivity. We should have traded our 2023 first round pick for Penning. I mean, I agree with you, Devon. But at the end of the day, that's not up to me, right? Like, I wouldn't have made that trade. I don't agree with it. But it is what it is. At this point, we just got to make it work. Like, Penning's got to be great. Lattimore's been great. Ramczyk has been great. Got to have all your first-round picks be great. And historically, first-round picks have a better success rate, but historically, if you go to any class, you're probably not going to have like an 80 or 90% hit rate. They fail too. So we'll see how that ends up going. But I like the reports of Payton Turner having a good start. I do like the fact that Michael Thomas, yes, him, is here, is back, is practicing, and doing the damn thing. All right? That's big for me. I'm excited about that. Whether it ends up working, we'll see. We'll see. But man, does that not get you excited? Does it not get you excited to see? I'm not sure if people looked at like the videos and the pictures that came out, and you can check some of those out at NewOrleansSaints.com. NewOrleans.football also has some good media if y'all want to consume some of that. But seeing AK out there working with Kendra Miller, and by the way, this is not meant as a shot at Kendra Miller, but they were doing some of the bag drills, and just from a athletic perspective, Kendra Miller did not look as good as Alvin Kamara. Now, I'm not saying that to down Miller, but simply to say, look, Kamara looks really fresh. You would hope that coming into camp, he looks great and fresh, but man, Kamara looks good. Kamara looks real good right now. And you got to hope that stays. I mean, we have obviously Demario Davis is back. Love seeing, I know it's in the stupid helmets, the big fat head helmets and kind of in t-shirts and shorts, but great to see Michael Thomas back as a full participant in camp. That's huge. Garrett Carr throwing him the football. Love that. So even though today is not a day that we can say, look, this team's going to make it to the Super Bowl, it's still a good day. Football is officially kind of technically back. It's technically kind of back. Also, if you haven't already, TJ, thank you for dropping the link. If you have not joined the Fantasy League for the show, we have 2 more fantasy slots, $20 buy-in. If you want to show that you are the best fantasy football player in Who Dat Nation, which, hell, I like to say that I'm pretty good at what I do. Fantasy football is not something that I've ever dominated, but maybe I'll dominate you. Ooh, phrasing. That's not how that was supposed to come out. Anyway, next subject. Wow. It's only day one. I'm scared to be happy for MT. I get that, Billy. I do. And I guess pick who you want to have a foot injury. Michael Thomas or Trevor Penning? Who would you rather have? Look here, Lance, don't judge me. You don't know my story. You don't know my life. You don't know what I've been through. You don't know what dungeons I've fought for. Comparing Villa running drills reminds me of Calvin Ridley and Zay Jones video. I can't say I'm super familiar with that one, so can't really speak to that. Funny Guy says, of course, Mike's situation is going to be week to week, but it's encouraging seeing him back. And at least he gave us back-to-back days. Penning can't even do that. Again, they say Penning is day-to-day, but I just can't leave the worry of, and it's not like Penning's the only one I've said this about, but big guys and foot injuries just don't typically just go away. Like when you weigh that much, when you are that big, your feet hurt. You seem more likely to hurt said feet. So I'm just kind of struggling with that one right now. I really hope it works out because if you're New Orleans, you can't afford to have another first round pick wash out. Like, you already have the threat of that happening to Payton Turner, right? Like, that's a worry that you legitimately have. We hope that he works it out. Remember, this is year 3, and I tell y'all year 3 is a big deal. But Trevor Penning coming into his second year, having only played one NFL game and now injured. And even in that one NFL game, he was there. It wasn't like he was, this dominant force of like, holy crap, so glad we drafted him. You kind of need these first rounders to start hitting. And more than your just skill position first rounders. Like, fantastic that you've gotten success out of Marshawn Lattimore and stuff. But you really need to have these defensive ends start working. And speaking of, new 3-tech, anybody watching? I mean, you're in pads. I mean, you're not in pads yet, so you can't really read too much in anything you see from the D-line. I will note that your starting defensive ends, if anybody in chat is curious, your starting defensive ends at the beginning of camp, Cameron Jordan, Payton Turner, are the ones getting the most first-team reps at the moment. At the moment, TJ, he only started one game. He came in and did some sub work, but he only started one game. His snap counts are hecky low last year. Just for those listening, referencing, of course, Trevor Penning. Trevor Penning's snap count was like 97% for the one game he started against Carolina. And I think over the other 5 games that he was actually dressed, he was average like 15% of the snaps, something like that. Extra offensive lineman type duties. But we still got to see that work out. And Payton Turner's in that same list. And I think if you're looking at training camp, those are guys that are on the hot seat. But I'm mentioning Payton Turner a lot. One who's starting with the ones right now. Now, Gerald says, is Carl Granderson big enough to hold up as a starter on the edge? I mean, in a Dennis Allen style of like, if we see pretty good, and I think you don't have to be an analyst, you don't have to be a scout, you don't have to be anything to see what the Dennis Allen defensive end looks like. Just about anybody can write it down in the chat right now. But you're typically looking for a guy who's at least 270, usually around 280, 275 maybe, 6'5" to 6'7". I mean, they want length, they want mass. Carl Granderson is neither of those. That doesn't mean he's small, but Granderson is 6'5", like 260. A little bit smaller than DA would typically run, but that doesn't mean that Carl Granderson hasn't gotten significant snap count. If you, in fact, look at his game logs from just last year. Now, a lot of this, I think, was New Orleans kind of having to do that. But the second half of the season, he was averaging about 60% snaps of the game. If you go before the Las Vegas game, he was averaging around 30% of the defensive snaps. And then it was about double that, right around double that, maybe about 55% after the Raiders game, what Granderson was averaging in terms of snap count. So, yeah, he doesn't really fit the size, but he became a very key part of that rotation. And there was also, a 3-game span where he got a sack in all those 3 games. So, a nice little 3-game stretch. I think it was Atlanta and Cleveland were 2 of them. And it was either Tampa or Philly. It was in that range where they had the 3 games just back to back to back. I just don't think that he's somebody that they're really looking at to be the all-time, full-time guy. But I think that he's a rotational guy. And I talked about this in the last episode. I feel like he's going to get the opportunity to fight for that position. Like, they like that chip on the shoulder, right? And I think that he's got a little bit of that because it's just assumed right now that Payton Turner's your guy. And it's assumed that if it's not him, then it's the guy that you just drafted in the 2nd round. But Carl Granderson's sitting there going like, hey, I'm a multi-5-sack guy as a rotational. I deserve to be the starter. I don't really feel like he fits DA's pure starter body type because if you look at how he used Marcus Davenport and stuff like that, definitely a lot of run support as the back end so that he can have his linebackers flow. But I do think that he's fighting for that, and maybe he could improve enough to make that happen. Very curious to see how that's going to work out, Gerald. Track says, I'm not surprised Penning still dealing with injuries. Big guys and foot injuries don't go well together. I'm with you, Tragic, sadly. Funny guy says, once pads come on, we'll see what's up. And I agree. Creo says, your thoughts on Carr through 2 practices. Derek Carr is everything that I've been saying Derek Carr was for years, which is Derek Carr is Drew Brees light, in that he is a very, very efficient West Coast quarterback with a good arm, good accuracy, and not Hall of Fame level of decision-making. So we'll wait and see how that actually pans out. 2 days, I'm not really going to be able to, I think, identify anything. I think that he is going to have an easier transition for picking up this offense and executing it than anybody that we've had in recent memory. And I think Winston was even a good setup for like a West Coast offense, but Derek Carr is like a true many years now West Coast quarterback. He should not struggle to have conceptual understanding of what the New Orleans Saints offense needs to do. So if he struggles at all, if Derek Carr doesn't ball out, it is not because he doesn't fit this team. If Derek Carr doesn't, because they have built this team around Derek Carr in every conceivable way. There are still areas of question, like we're talking about Trevor Penning at left tackle. That's still an area of question. But if you look at the running back styles, if you look at the tight end acquisitions, and you look at the types of wide receivers that they have brought in and established, they have built everything that Derek Carr would need to be successful for his style of play. Everything. And if he's not successful, it's hard to say it definitely is on him, because we do have Pete Carmichael that we're also sitting here judging on whether or not Pete Carmichael deserves to, 1, be an offensive coordinator, and 2, get out of the shadow of Sean Payton, which, by the way, Sean Payton's comments these past couple days are worth an entire segment on their own. That man just throwing shade all around the league and everywhere, up and which way, which I don't honestly have a problem with, but damn, like, dude, coach your team. So I think that Derek Carr, and I said this, if y'all remember, because I know some of y'all have been around for a long time. Some of y'all have been watching this podcast for 4 or 5 years. If y'all remember back when we talked about Drew Brees needing to retire, and he was clear at the end of his career, one of the names that we would bring up was Derek Carr. So it's not like Derek Carr is a surprise to this team. He's always been a fit to this offense. So he deserves the shot to do it, but also at the same time, I'm probably not going to see anything the first couple of weeks that make me get shocked about Derek Carr. Like, I don't feel like there's going to be a training camp moment where I look at Derek Carr and go, holy, that's it. Because truly, the Derek Carr question can only be answered in games. And that might sound kind of dumb and cliche, like we're not judging quarterbacks until we see wins or losses, because I don't believe in the wins or losses, a quarterback stat thing. But for me, it's just, I know exactly what Derek Carr is, because we've been watching Derek Carr from a distance saying he fits this team for years. We've been talking about what this team needs from a quarterback. Well, Derek Carr is that type of a guy. Whether he is successful, we've just got to see. It's not like you have a new quarterback coming in where you look at, say, Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston fits a West Coast offense, but he's also a guy that has elements that, whether we're talking about the physical side or tendencies, that aren't part of a traditional West Coast. Like, Jameis's need and desire, and it's both, to push the field is not traditional West Coast. That doesn't mean that it doesn't happen with success, because Drew Brees did it for a long time in his prime. Sure, that's great. But that's not, I mean, he's a little bit more atypical, even though he has the skills to fit. Whereas Derek Carr is like that perfect prototype. It's the same thing like we were talking about with Granderson. Like, there are definitely 260-pound pass rushers in this league who are dominant 10-sack guys, and I'm sure a couple of y'all can name some off the top of your head. But that doesn't mean they fit the prototype of Dennis Allen's defense, even if around other teams in the league, they're very good. It's the same idea here, just from a concept basis. I mean, I don't really need to see anything from Derek Carr. I mean, I need him to build a rapport with his receivers. I need timing to be right, that when he hits his 5-step drops, the receivers are exactly where they need to be. That's cool and all, but there's nothing I need to see from Derek Carr in training camp. I just need him to go through the process and then be part of a winning football team. I need to see him executed against other teams. And the only time this offseason that I'll probably really look at Derek Carr in training camp / preseason is when we get to joint practices. And I want to see him in that situation. How is he handling that? Because if he can process the field and execute this offense, I'm good. But I don't have any questions about his arms. I don't have any questions about his football IQ. And I don't have any questions about his ability to run this offense in terms of like knowing the plays. My question is he able to execute this offense to the degree that he actually has control of the offense? As in, we're getting back to the days where Derek Carr is actually going out there with 3 plays. And then Derek Carr is deciding what play we're doing. Like, that's the level of understanding he has, just how Drew Brees did it. We haven't really had that for a couple years. And I won't see if he can do that until we're actually in the game. And then we'll know. Now, just says, how do you feel about the fumbles in camp so far? Doesn't bother me at all, man. I mean, first week of camp, it's hot as hell. We sweating. I ain't worried about nothing. Ain't nothing you can tell me that's happening in shorts and T-shirts, it's going to have me worried in terms of on the field. Now, if a guy's not on the field, Trevor Penning looking at you, now I'm worried. Why is Trevor Penning not on the field? Now I'm worried. But I'm not worried about some fumbles in July 27th, 2023. Sometimes that happens. And then you go through drills, you work on that. Do you think Zach Bond should be used as an edge in the race car package? Speed on the edge getting wasted. I mean, Avery, we've been saying that since the man got brought into New Orleans. But he's become a special team stud, so shout out to 3rd-round draft picks becoming special teams aces. Like, more power to him, I guess. I mean, we've talked about when he was in college, that's what he was. He was an outside linebacker that was mostly used as an edge rusher, either from the weak side or the strong side. And the hope was that he could elevate his game at the next level so that he couldn't just be limited to rotational pass rushing snaps and actually contribute in coverage and run stopping. And athletically, he's got the athletic profile to do this. We actually did a film study when he got drafted where he has the athletic profile to, flip his hips, good feet. He's definitely got the speed and everything to keep up and catch up, to trail. It just never really worked out for whatever reason. And without being in that man's brain, who knows? But at this point, I'll be real. No. I mean, if he's not shown that he can be that linebacker, then he's not going to be. And it was actually kind of funny because, what was it, like last month, y'all? Dennis Allen, they were talking to Dennis Allen about the defense, and, Bond kind of got brought up, and there was literally, you could just see it in his eyes. There was no expectation of Zach Bond hitting that next level, and you could just hear it in Dennis Allen's voice as he's talking. But there was just no expectation that you were going to see Zach Bond go and dominate this year. Shakal, thank you so much for the $2 with the off-season support. Thank you for supporting the channel. Greatly appreciate you, man. I can't do what I do without the support of people like y'all. And just speaking of, by the way, since y'all going to drop that, get you the Who Dat Confessional snapback. It is the premier hat to rock this season. We got T-shirts, we got mugs, we got hats. We got it all clean, looking all mean. Go to revdeuce.com, support the channel. And look, there's one thing that I will say about DA that I really do respect, is that man does not fluff. He don't fluff piece it. He's not going to sit here and try to make it sound like Zach Bond's about to be the next big dog. He's going to keep it straight. He's just keep it straight. And I respect that. Zach Bond would thrive in 3-4. I mean, the whole idea of 3-4 versus 4-3 is It's a very outdated argument because that doesn't really exist anymore. But I mean, NFL front sevens are so fluid that there's a ton of overlap there. Traditional 3-4s don't even exist anymore. Like, I don't know and have not known for a while a single NFL team that runs an actual traditional 3-4. Doesn't exist in the league anymore. So, yeah, I mean, there's definitely roles that he could fit better in. New Orleans just doesn't utilize those roles. I think that's kind of a better way to do it because NFL defenses have gotten to a point where positions aren't the static positions they once were. It's very much about specific roles and are we using these roles in this defense? And they just don't use what he's best suited at as a role. At least I don't think so. So, talk about DA running wind sprints. Yeah, he actually did. He got challenged. DA got challenged by the players to run the sprints after practice, and he did. And apparently beat some of the players. Now, he didn't beat Marshawn at all. Marshawn waxed him, which if that didn't happen, talk about things that would concern me. If DA waxed Marshawn Lattimore in wind sprints, I'd been just like, well, y'all can go call. That season is done. Season's BBQ chicken. Lattimore challenged him the sprints, and he got out there and balled out with the people. And I think that's freaking dope. I think that's dope that DA did that. Now, again, DA did not go out and like embarrass the DB room and out sprint them, but still, the fact that the coach is out there doing it with the players, showing that he's willing to put in the work as well and not just yell from the sidelines and chirp, I think that's pretty dope. I mean, that's some like Sean Payton in his prime level stuff. When that man was rocking like Walmart khakis and stuff out on the side of the field and then nasty dress shoes that he used to wear. Like, you know those dress shoes that look almost like McDonald's work shoes, but they're supposed to be like dress shoes from like Walmart or Target? That's what he used to rock. Everybody kind of remembers, you know, Peyton rocking like 11s and stuff and rocking his Jordans. That's not how it used to be. Like, remember Sean Payton before Michael Thomas and stuff? Sean Payton was no drip, none. Completely stopped up faucet, man. You got to call a plumber because there ain't no drip. That Sean Payton was doing goofy stuff with the team too. So, back in the day. Good to see you, Big Willie. Good to see you. Do you think we run Sluggo this year? So, for those that don't know what Sluggo is just a route concept consisting of 2 routes, slant and go, with the Sluggo being on the left side, mostly with Michael Thomas in this particular, you know, imaginary situation where he would run a slant and then turn it into a go, and then it's paired with an actual go route up the seam on the opposite side of the field. So if you've got your split in out wide to your left, he's going to run a slant and go on the outside of the numbers, and then on the backside over here, opposite side of mainly the safety who you're trying to draw. If you're running single high, slant and go is a great thing to run against single high. Makes the safety become a conflict defender, so you're going to get a one-on-one no matter what. But you're going to have that tight end on the seam on the opposite side run that go route. It really just comes down to who they feel comfortable running that, and the timing is so big on the Sluggo because if the timing's not right, then it doesn't matter. You could. It's definitely a concept that relies heavily on timing and the ability to read from post-snap, after your pre-snap, and hopefully confirm what you see in the act quickly. Do I think that they should run a lot of it? Yes, but one, I would need Michael Thomas to actually be healthy. Michael Thomas got to be healthy enough to run that. I mean, and when I mean run it as in, it's one thing to run a slant. It's another thing to run slant go and actually be effective enough to get on top of a defense. And I don't know if he's at that point anymore. I don't. He was 2017 Michael Thomas. Definitely could get on top of a defense. It was an underrated part of his game. I don't know if he could do that now. And then I would probably run it with Juwan Johnson, even though Jimmy Graham is famous for it. We've seen Jimmy Graham run Sluggo many times. But at this point, I would probably want Juwan to do it. And how effectively could they draw that up? But, yeah, I'm down for it. I would love to see it. And there's a lot of concepts that I want to see the Saints really take advantage of. You know, Sluggo is one of them. But the mesh concepts, the Saints have not had the same level of success in mesh concepts that they used to have. 4 verts does not have the same level of success that it used to have. You know, obviously the Yankee concept is one that's on the t-shirt we have on revdeuce.com. Y'all go check out that t-shirt, support the channel. But I think they just need to start simple too. You know, Sean Payton's offense had become this very, very complicated, just demon almost. But that's okay, because he had the quarterback and the team to demonize the opposing defenses, and it worked out. It's okay. I think you need to start off slow and then work your way up there. And I'm not saying that there are concepts that shouldn't be run. I'm just saying that I need this team to really build from the bottom offensively, perfect basic concepts, and then go up to the top. Chicago says, who have a better season, Saints or Pels? Well, I'll be real with y'all. Y'all can call me a hater. It's cool. Y'all go ahead and make the clip right now. Put your fingers ready on the clip button, New Orleans. I'm okay with it. I'm fine. And I've always said, football I know, basketball I love. As in, I love watching basketball, but I don't know not about it. Not about it. So I'll say the Saints because I don't believe in Zion Williamson. And when I say I don't believe in Zion Williamson, I'm not saying I don't believe how much he can do on the court. Because I watched that Suns game with he had the windmill and just absolutely embarrassed him. Loved it. I watch Zion's 20 games a year. But guess what? I watch Zion 20 games a year. And this team has proven that maybe they can make the Western Conference play-in, which they've done 2 years in a row. 1 year they did enough to get into the playoffs. 1 year they did not, which was last year. But because they're so focused on being built around Zion, they don't work without him. Now, we can debate on what the reason for that is on a completely different show. But they got a very talented team that has not played well enough in the season, especially with consistency, to dominate in the playoffs. So I'm going to pick my Saints. They're going to be the better team this year. And I think that's a safer bet. I want the Pels to dominate, but I no longer believe in the centerpiece they've built themselves around. That's just kind of where I'm personally at. And if I end up looking like an idiot, I'm completely okay with looking like idiots. Y'all go ahead and clip this. Y'all go ahead and say that I'm a hater. I'm completely okay with it. Completely okay with it. Zion is to come back hungry this year. I think that's the problem. I think the man comes back hungry every year. He needs to stop being so damn hungry. Maybe he should be thirsty and drink Slim Fast more often. That's the problem. He's too thirsty too. I mean, the man's chasing. Man has secured the bag. And now the man's chasing bad E's instead of working on his game. Zion is plenty hungry. And he's plenty thirsty. But the man needs to play some basketball. That's really where I'm at. That's really where I'm at. Because, like, I give DA a shot because DA is trying to be the best that he can be, even if he's not great. Right? He's trying to be the best he can be, even though he's not great. Like, it's sad that last year was his best head coaching record ever by double. Like, he literally did better than the 3 years he coached as a head coach. Last year was easily double better than any other year he had had. So I'm giving DA the benefit of the doubt that he showed an improvement arc. We'll see if that keeps happening. But Zion, it's like the famous lady used to say, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. And what has Zion showed me? Besides the fact that he's actually getting sued right now. I don't know if y'all heard, that man's got a $2 million lawsuit that just got hit him like yesterday. But Zion is coming into his 5th year in the NBA. 5 years. He has played a total of like 110 games. For those that don't know, basketball plays 82-game seasons, not counting the playoffs. That man has played like 110 games. Missed an entire year because of a foot injury. Last year only played like 25 games. Maybe, what was it, 25 or 30 games? Yeah, I'm done. I don't believe. And if that makes me a hater, I'm a hater. It would literally be like if you drafted an offensive tackle in the first round and he played one game because he was injured. It would literally be like you drafted a defensive end in the first round. He was a healthy damn scratch. Just saying, like, I'm not trying to be a hater on him as a person because I do believe that Zion could go somewhere else and be successful. Maybe he really does. And that's the curse of New Orleans because he really would take his big grumpy self up to the freaking Utah Jazz and start playing 65 games a year and become the MVP of the league. But I'm just done with Zion. I really would rather this team, and y'all can hate me if you want, I would rather this team build around B.I., what's left of C.J. McCollum's career, and Herb Jones, who is the most underrated defensive player in the entire NBA. I'd rather they build around that big three than Zion being part of that big three. I really would. I would rather build a team that is built on great team gameplay that has a couple of great players than trying to build around one guy who truly could be the best player in the NBA. Like Zion truly could be that guy. He really could be the best entire player in the NBA. But I would rather just build a very good team with greats. I'm not saying Brandon Ingram could ever be the greatest player in the NBA. I don't think he can. But I still think he's a great player. I think he's an all-star level player. So is CJ. And then you got an amazing, to me, a guy who belongs on all defensive teams. You can build with that. Do it. Trigger Trey is a role player. You need good role players. You need them. So that's what I believe. And that's my long-winded way of saying why I believe in the Saints more than I believe in the Pels. I believe Brandon Ingram's washed it all. Ingram's still got many years of great basketball in him. He's not even old. Brandon Ingram younger than me by a lot. Brandon Ingram's been in the league 7 years, but he came in the league when he was like 19. This ain't football. This isn't Michael Thomas coming into the NFL when he's 23 years old. Like B.I. came in when he was like 18, 19. So he's what, 26 this year? That man still got easily good 4 or 5 years of basketball in him if he's healthy. Easy. You telling me he can't play till he's 30 as a high level? Yeah. Build around him. Build around CJ, who's 35,000 years old. Build around what you got. That's me. And y'all saw that Willie Hernangomez is going to play in Europe or whatever, so he's gone. He gone. But yeah, give me Trey Murphy. Hell, let me get some Dyson Daniels in there. Let me get some Dyson Daniels in there. Give me some Jose Alvarado back. I'd rather watch that team actually play ball. Give me some Herb Jones out there with that amazing defense. Give me up. Anyway, back to the New Orleans Saints. Although, I mean, I love talking NOLA sports no matter what we're talking about. New Orleans could get a hockey team, and I'd be, well, you know my white. Be damn excited if we got a hockey team. But I'll talk about whatever sports we got NOLA. We're going to talk green wave. We can talk Saints, Pels. Hey, what's that Loyola mock trial looking like this year? Y'all ready for that Loyola mock trial? Bro, them lawyers about to put it down, bro. They about to bang it. Woo! Telling you, man. We can turn anything into a sport. Y'all tell me about that Loyola mock trial. How's it doing? What's Southern looking like this year? What's Southern looking like this year? Y'all wild. Robert says trade and get tons of assets, but who would really pay a ton of assets for? It's kind of like on the Saints side of things, like when people will say we should just shop this player. Ain't nobody want that dude. Like who really is giving a lot for Zion, who's played 110 games in 5 years? Who's really giving Zion a lot? I mean, truthfully, also with the size of that man's contract. That would be like expecting somebody to give a lot for Alvin Kamara. I swear to God, if you traded Alvin Kamara today, you'd probably get like a 4th round pick. Y'all gonna get offended hearing that. That doesn't mean I think that Alvin Kamara sucks. I was being honest. Like, who's really out here paying for Zion right now? They believing in that potential that much? What are you even really getting for him? And I know I said I'm tired of him, but at the same time, what are you really going to get from him? Trevor Penning is a bust? I don't give anybody the bust title until it's been 3 years. Trevor Penning can't be a bust. Can't be a bust. Now, Payton Turner could very well be a bust after this year. So, are the Saints eligible for a Hall of Fame game? What's the criteria? The extra preseason game? I don't know. I have to actually Google that. Because obviously, For those that don't know, Tom Benson Stadium is actually where they play the Hall of Fame game. But in terms of how they determined that game, I really don't remember the selection process. I'd have to go back and Google that. I really don't remember. Sorry, Najee. I usually have good answers, but I don't remember. This Allen calls defense. Pete calls the offense. It's really more on Pete, but if Pete sucks, DA takes all the fall because he's the head coach. And honestly, Ben, that's how it should be. That's how it should be. It truly is. At the end of the day, as a head coach, the wins and losses rest on your shoulders. And you've got to make things happen. Because honestly, we talk about players getting replaced, right? Like if a guy's playing badly on the field, what do? You bench him. Well, if you are named Dennis Allen, you can do the same damn thing. Bench Pete Carmichael. Now, that doesn't mean I want Dennis Allen calling offensive plays, but there are men on their staff who have, one, offensive play calling responsibilities in history, or two, are seen as next up and coming guys. Like right now, if you just are, that Pete Carmichael is just ass at play calling. Sorry, I got to use the button. At play calling, you're 5 games in and it's clear it's not the player's fault. Ronald Curry needs to be being talked to about potentially running some calls. Doug Marrone, I know is old as dirt, but is literally an offensive head coach in the NFL level guy. You have got people in the building who can call plays and who design the game now. Ronald Curry is your passing game coordinator. Doug Marrone is your offensive line coach, but he literally has got a history of 400 years in the league as an offensive coach. Bench him. We need to make coaches getting benched more popular. Because if a coach is ass, I'm sorry, I keep forgetting to use the button. If a coach, then you need to sit him just like you would a player. Doug Marrone was the offensive coordinator for the New Orleans Saints from 2006 to 2008. Then he was the head coach of Buffalo and the head coach of Jacksonville. You cannot tell me that this man couldn't do a play call. Then you got Cody Burns out of Tennessee. He would be probably third on my list, if I had to list who's ready to go. But you got to bench them. If they ain't playing right, bench them. Bench them. Coaches make the game plan. Teams make the game plan. Game planning is not a singular person thing. Right now, let's say that we are you and I. We are a football team right now. Us. The 85 people listening live plus me. We are the football team. We're the practice squad. We're the coaching staff. We're the players. Today is Thursday. So we're going through install, which will be Wednesday and today, and we'll be playing our game on Sunday. While we're doing this, the scouting department is actually building the game plan for next week. They're currently studying old games. And then as soon as our game is over Sunday, they're going to probably don't do a binder anymore because this is not, the 1940s. But they're going to take their binders of information that they've done collected and schemed, and they found tendencies. They're going to plop them on the desk of a coordinator and go next week. That's a process. So I'm not saying that Pete can't game plan or anything, but I will tell you this. The one thing that we know Pete Carmichael did do well with Sean Payton and Drew Brees was game planning. So that means if you needed to demote Pete Carmichael to where he's not actively playing calling the plays, but he's helping with the game plan, I'm okay with that. If he sucks. I'm just saying, my whole point was this: make benching coaches a thing now. If coaches are playing, then you need to bench them for somebody else. They can still help contribute to the game plan, but don't ride that man for 17 games and just suck, and the answer is he sucks. You have got 2 guys who are, one is going to be an offensive coordinator in this league for sure, and a second one who's already done it and has success historically doing it. And then you even have guys behind that potentially could be that same type of thing, which somebody mentioned Cody Burns. Now, I don't really know enough about Clancy Barone or anything to stick my neck out for them. But I'm just saying that you have got people there. Use them. Use them. This Allen will work out. He just has to bring his own identity and stop trying to go off another man's identity. I don't think he is doing that. Literally, like one of the first things that he did last year when he took over this team was to establish his own identity. The real question is, can Dennis Allen being a winning identity? Can he do that? Like, can Dennis Allen be a winning head coach? We know that he can be a dominant defensive coordinator. Can he be a winning head coach? I don't know. I don't honestly know. I can tell you this, though. Last year, this team went 7-10, but this team also should have won more games than it did. And I can't say most of the losses were on Dennis Allen either. And I'm not trying to make excuses for him. I'm just being honest. If we were all to just objectively say who was the fault that this game lost and this game lost, most of my fingers aren't pointed at Dennis Allen. That doesn't mean I secretly believe Dennis Allen's a great coach. I'm just saying that I don't think the problems last year were mostly Dennis Allen. Now, Dennis Allen did have some extreme problems at the beginning of the season, and we called them out. He also really worked on improving his issues. Like, we talked about how passive. Y'all remember how passive he would be in game day and everything? And just like, you just felt like, dude, show some emotion, get out there and lead your men. Well, the second half of the season, he was definitely more involved in doing that. Like, a lot of the critiques that we had about Dennis Allen, he actually did better at in the second half of the season. And we gave him credit for that. Right? I think the suspect issue was old Petey Pete. I think that's the biggest one, but there were others too. I mean, you did still have Andy Dalton as your quarterback. So because you lost with so many close games, what was it, 6 games you lost like within a single score, Dennis Allen very well could have been a winning head coach. Coulda. You still got to go out and do it. So if DA truly is showing growth, if DA is truly getting better, and if that coaching is leading to wins and leading to better team play, which it did at the end of last year, then I'm going to give DA a shot. But as soon as he goes the opposite direction, like he's clearly getting worse, he's doing stupid stuff, well, then we'll call that out. But, yeah, I mean, long story short, somebody asked, would John Gruden show up or will he show up again? I'll be honest, Ben, I highly doubt it. Nothing was wrong with Pete with Sean P. Well, I think that's because he had Sean P. So, but I think that there's just too much controversy, and y'all don't interpret that as me saying something good or bad about the man. I mean, there's just too much controversy around John Gruden, I think, for a team to risk picking him up. It's one thing to bring him in, in your mini camps to try to help the quarterback transition. Another thing to bring him in as like an offensive coordinator. But who knows? Joseph says Alvin's third down usage or lack thereof in 22 is nauseating. Must be corrected this season. I think one of the issues was, sure, I mean, we can definitely talk about not using AK correctly. And that's completely legitimate. But I think there was also just an obvious lack of understanding situational football. Like so many times, Taysom Hill was just gone. Alvin Kamara was not being used in certain moments, but then being run up the middle 2 or 3 straight times into a mass where that's not his game. Again, not to insult AK, but Alvin Kamara is not a bell cow running back that you use to wear down defenses. I'm sorry, he is not. And I'm not trying to limit Alvin Kamara and say that he's bad, but if you were just running Alvin Kamara inside zone runs, first and second down up the middle, and you're just trying to wear down a defense, all you're doing is wearing down Alvin Kamara and making him less effective throughout the entire season. That is not what Alvin Kamara is. I mean, I guess that's why you got Jamal Williams. Let him do all that wearing down shit. Sorry. But there's just so many things that it would seem obvious to us that this is not the best way to go about it that they were doing last year offensively. So, is what it is. Bam says, bring in Rob Ryan to just grow the hair out for luck and so the fans can dress up like him. Oh, yeah, bring back Rob Ryan. There you go. For fun facts, this year's, remember last year, Jari Evans joined in training camp as part of the NFL's program to help minority players and stuff become coaches. This year, Leroy Glover, my favorite New Orleans Saints defensive player of all time, is this year's candidate who will be doing that with the defensive line and stuff. So I am like extremely excited about that. I don't know if that means anything like moving forward. Like, I don't know if Leroy Glover is going to turn Brian Breeze into a Saints legend. But he is now coaching with the defensive line in camp. And that is so exciting to me. Like, I truly am like just over the moon about that. For those that don't remember who Leroy Glover was, Leroy Glover is, in my opinion, he should be in the Hall of Fame. But he's a 6-time Pro Bowler. He was an All-Pro. He was with New Orleans for like 7 years, or like 6 years. Going back to the late Ditka era, all the way into the Haslett era. But he had 17 sacks in a single season. King Troll calls him a former Cowboy, but he was a former New Orleans Saint. Leroy Glover, the only reason Leroy Glover is not a household name, and I've said this for years, the only reason Leroy Glover is not a household name is because Warren Sapp was there at the same damn time. Same damn time. And that isn't to say that Warren Sapp secretly sucked. Warren Sapp really was the best 3-tech at the time. But the only reason that nobody knows about frickin' Leroy Glover is Warren Sapp. That's the reason. That's why. Leroy Glover was that good, y'all. Leroy Glover finished his career with New Orleans in 5 years, 50 sacks as a 3-tech. This man was an interior defensive lineman. We're not talking about a defensive end. This was a 3-tech who in 5 years with New Orleans had 50 sacks. A 3-tech. Dude is the best 3-tech this team's ever had. Like, it's not even close, right? And what's crazy is in 2000, he was second in Defensive Player of the Year voting. Like, that's how damn good he was. He lost to Ray Lewis that year. That was the year that Ray Lewis won with like 60% of the votes, and Leroy Glover was second with 22% of the votes. Guess who was third? Warren Sapp with 8%. So this is how good Leroy Glover was. Now, how that translates to him coaching our defensive line, I really don't know. But that was my favorite New Orleans Saints defensive player growing up, was Leroy Glover. Like, I wanted to be like Leroy Glover. So it's just really cool for me. If I could find a legit Leroy Glover jersey, I'd get that man to sign it, and I would frame it. It'd be my most prized possession for New Orleans Saints memorabilia. And I've got some cool Saints memorabilia. Like, I've got Willie Roaf, I've got AK, I've got Ingram, I've got stuff from like my interactions with players, and that's all great. If I got Leroy Glover jersey and signed it, that would be my top thing. That'd be my top thing. So, craziness. Man, really just that good. Damn. He was who I was hoping that Sheldon Rankins would be the next one. And like, that's actually a great perspective. Think about Sheldon Rankins. And we talk about how good Sheldon was when he was healthy with New Orleans. Because he really was, right? Sheldon Rankins really was great when he was with New Orleans. He was with New Orleans for 5 years. Now, keep in mind that he did not play a full set of games. But in 5 years with New Orleans, he had 17 and a half sacks. Sheldon Rankins did. Now, he only had full starting seasons of 2, but he played 64 games with New Orleans and had 17 and a half sacks. Leroy Glover played 79 games in New Orleans and had 50 sacks. Like, sweet baby Jesus. Like, damn. That's nuts. And then, sadly, because New Orleans had, like, I don't know how many remember this. Some of y'all are old enough to remember. There were a lot of, like, weird locker room and front office things going on in the early 2000s. And basically, the Saints broke up their defense. They had arguably the best defense in the NFL, depending on how you ranked it. And they ended up breaking it all up. And Leroy Glover ends up going to Dallas for like 4 years. And then he had another like 20 and a half sacks in Dallas over 4 years. And then he ends up retiring with the Rams. And he was actually with the Rams front office for, I think, like the past 3 or 4 years. And now he's trying to get into coaching. So, yeah, there's just a bunch of fun randomness there for you. But he's 49 years old. I just looked it up, 49. And he's now working with the Saints. And that's just got me all kind of excited. So if you're out there and you have a Leroy Glover jersey, I'm not saying that there's like no amount of money I would pay. But if you got a Leroy Glover Saints jersey, I'd love to have it. And if I can get this man to sign it, that's going to make my whole year. Is he in the Hall of Fame? No, he's not. I think it's a crime that Leroy Glover is not in the Hall of Fame. I think it's a crime. But that's just me. You know, everybody remembers Warren Sapp, though, because he was the best 3-tech of that entire era / generation. But here's another reference point. Warren Sapp, who is, hands down, the best 3-tech of that era, that mid-90s to mid-2000s, finished with 96.5 sacks. That was his career numbers, 96.5. That's Warren Sapp. Leroy Glover finished his career with 83.5. So 13 less sacks than than Warren Sapp, who was an undisputed, definite Hall of Famer. I think Leroy Glover deserves to be in the Hall of Fame as well. And hopefully he will get there eventually. But he never won a Super Bowl. For whatever reason, people count that against you. And he played for mostly sucky teams at the time. Like New Orleans is not a team that most people would give any type of fanfare to. The early 2000s Dallas teams honestly weren't very good. Like that's when Bill Parcells was there and Campo was there. And they had like a couple of wild card appearances, but they weren't good, right? They weren't like their 90s self. So, yeah. Yeah. Anyway, good episode today, Al. We got to wrap it up. But great episode. I've had a great time with y'all. Hope y'all have enjoyed it. Check out the Discord if you haven't already. Who dat? God bless. I'll catch you at the next stream, the next podcast. I want some good news for you, hopefully. Who dat? God bless. Deuces. That's me. Catch you on the next one. We outie.